Okay, so when you download a um, digital paper pack, a lot of the time the patterns will come in 12 by 12 format. Now, you'll often see like a single repeat. So this is a seamless pattern, but this is a single repeat. This is a single repeat tile. So sometimes you'll get like a repeat across the page, but a lot of the time you'll just get this one repeat tile. Now, if I was to go in and, so these are 12 by 12, if I was to go in and print on my A4 sheet, and I would select then full page, if I fit to frame, it will fit the 12 by 12 sheet onto A4. So this is actually more like 8 by 8 or 8.5 by 8.5. So this is what I would get if I printed onto my A4 sheet, which is nice, but it's kind of big. So if I wanted to cut this down to use as A6, for example, to use on a card front, a lot of the pattern would be lost. So what I like to do to make my paper packs go further is to create like an A4 version that I can print. And I might make several different scales. So this one, for example, is good for cutting down to A6. But if I wanted to do like half of an A4 sheet, so A5, or for something else, I might want a slightly different scale. So this is a really good thing to do when you download your paper pack initially. So the first thing to do is open a new document. Now I've already got mine selected, but I would choose, if you go to print, you'll see that there's A4 is one of the options. In order to make it work for me, I create an artboard. I prefer to, image placement prefer linked, so that will basically link it rather than embed it, which means that your file size is smaller, which is not an issue if you're just doing what we're doing here, but if you wanted to save this document, for example, then it would make a big difference. I always like to put in a transparent background, and I don't need the margins, and that's that. So I create that document, and then click off the artboard. You don't need an artboard, but I just like to have one. And then I'd go to rectangle tool and draw a rectangle, the same size as the artboard, so A4, and then go to the fill tool and select under type, select bitmap, and then choose my pattern. So I've already done this first two, so let's carry on with the third one. So I'd open my bitmap and then it would put that in there. So this is similar to the sort of size. So that would be, if I move this handle to here, that would be the 12 by 12 scale. So that's not bad for, cutting it down to smaller sizes, but I think I'm just going to make it slightly smaller still. So if you can imagine, if I draw another square that is A6, and we'll make that transparent so that you can see through it. This is what you would see on the front of a card if you were using this paper for a card front, for example. So that's kind of what I have in mind when I'm making my scale. And obviously, if you wanted to have an A5, that's what you'd see. So you can pull the handles to make a bigger scale, a smaller scale. You can have it rotated if you wanted to, on the diagonal. If you wanted to, if you liked the pattern in a different orientation, this one's not so important because it's just non-directional. But you can change the direction. You can basically just by dragging these handles. And then here, you can make sure this is selected to maintain the aspect ratio so that when you drag one handle, it automatically resizes in the other direction. Otherwise, you'll distort your fill. So anyway, have a play and decide on a scale that works for you. You can have it centralized. You can move it around if you prefer the way it looks, slightly off center. And then when you're happy, you can just then go to File, Export, Artboard 1, and then export to your whatever folder you want. So I always keep it in the same folder so that I can find it easily. So I'm going to call mine A4 and then whatever the pattern tile is called, and save that. Okay, and then rather, if you wanted to keep these, you could make a new layer and do it again and again. But what I'm just going to keep the one layer and refill. So go back to bitmap, click on bitmap again, then it will give you the option to fill a different pattern. So it will put it in at the same size or the same scaling that you used previously. So you can see this is the scaling. So this is just to show you again, this is how the 12 by 12 would look, scaled down, chopped up, uh, cropped for A4, which is kind of nice, but I think for smaller projects, for kind of card making, I'm going to have a smaller scale. So I'm going to use something like this. I think that's okay. So File, Export that. And then basically you carry on doing that for all the papers that you have in your set. And if you find one that you like that doesn't need rescaling, you can just keep it. You don't have to rescale if you don't want to. Just going to do this. If you find that your handles are wanting to snap to this grid, just hold down Alt as you're moving them, and it will give you free movement without the snapping. Okay, so now when you go to your file folder, you've got your 12 by 12 papers. So if you have a large format printer, you might want to keep the scale, but then you also have your scaled down version as well. which will work for smaller projects like mini albums and greetings cards. So you can see I've done it here as well. So these were the original papers, and then I went in and changed the scale for A4. So there you go. So that's how you can make your 12 by 12 digital paper packs go a little bit further and make them a little bit more versatile. Happy crafting! See you next time. Bye!